Hello, I'm Jody McFarland Friedman, and I'm happy today to be addressing the 2023 International Symposium of Autoethnography and Narrative. This autoethnographic account of miscarriage interweaves personal pregnancy loss narrative with literature relating to miscarriage mythology and secrecy. It interrogates tropes, the culture of silence and women's isolation, and growing research into social media's place in grief work, as well as society's fraught relationship with women and their wombs in post-Roe America. Suggesting avenues for future research, it offers a fresh application of the behavioral immune system as a paradigm that dictates and controls pregnancy loss and miscarriage disclosures. There's a space between my children that belongs to another child. It's as thin as a sheet of paper bearing a single date of birth and death. It is as snug as the wooden dark box of my shutting heart, where that paper is nestled. It's as swift as the days between the whooshing heartbeat and the ultrasound that confirmed the baby's presence, and another in an exam room as silent as a tomb. It would be some days before I fully understood that while I was pregnant, I wasn't having a baby. I was having a miscarriage. Autoethnography, mining for answers to researchable questions from the rich vein of one's life, is a means for processing creative meaning and enduring the profound. Miscarriage certainly qualifies. There are cards for births and baptisms and bereavement, but there's no condolence card for miscarriage. The epistemology of autoethnography aims to provide its reader, and me as its writer, another way of knowing, the way author Flannery O'Connor wrote, because I don't know what I think until I read what I say. Always, autoethnography is a view of one's inner life, filtered through the culture and ever-shifting language of herself. When I was no longer expecting, I was emptied of womb and appetite. I was a void in a world throbbing with new life. Body and soul, I grew painfully thin. These experiences are filtered by my subjectivity as a cisgender married white woman. I make no attestations that I speak for all womankind, nor transmasculine and non-binary people who also experience pregnancy loss. Well, this one was, not every pregnancy is wanted. I can only guess at feelings that come with a miscarriage at the confluence of relief and guilt, felt or absent. These experiences are filtered by my subjectivity. In the words of ethnographer Tony Adams, the way I make sense of these experiences is not the only way to make sense of them. Yet by uniting the personal and the professional, the private and the public, I seek to explore and understand knowledge of pregnancy loss and mediated responses to it. This autoethnography engages with literature surrounding pregnancy loss, from news accounts to peer-reviewed, interwoven with my own experience in the pursuit of deeper understanding. I interrogate pregnancy loss myths, a culture of silence, growing research into social media's place in grief work, and the relationship women and their wombs have with society. Miscarriage is oft experienced, seldom spoken. As many as 1 in 5 pregnancies end this way, some so near to conception that the woman did not know she was pregnant. Euphemisms confuse pregnancy loss. Stillbirth takes place at or after 20 weeks and affects 1 in 160 births. Journalists can do confuse the terms, or they use miscarriage as a catch-all. And here I admit a cub reporter error of my own. The Associated Press style book, a journalist's linguistic, grammatical, and cultural manual, has no entry for miscarriage or stillbirth, yet words matter. Despite its frequency, 55% of Americans think that miscarriage is rare, occurring less than 5% of the time, the stuff of soap opera starlets taking dramatic spills down staircases. I had 2 successful pregnancies prior to my miscarriage. I was healthy and young, a non-smoker and an only occasional drinker. I exercised, but not too much. I took prenatal vitamins and quit caffeine and avoided soft cheeses. I had internalized the American notion that a woman is both in charge of and responsible for her body and the life she harbors. I had every expectation this pregnancy would result in a new member of our family. Miscarriage for too long has been an outcome consigned to whispers, a void in sexual education curriculums. In one survey of university students, only 20% accurately pinpointed the frequency of miscarriage. When I lost the baby, I found a secret society of women who had shielded their fertility struggles from view. Pregnancy loss is treated as if speaking its name invokes it. as if miscarriage is catching. Psychologists have examined the behavioral immune system, where humans detect cues to pathogens and reject people and places they perceive may increase their own health risks. Miscarriage falls into this theoretical space. Conventional wisdom that where the eyes go, the body will follow glosses over the reality that miscarriage happens outside of a woman's thoughts on the matter. While pregnancy loss is not contagious, fear is. A woman is likely to shoulder blame for the death of the baby she carried, believing that she was working too hard, that she wasn't eating well, that she weighed too much or weighed too little, that she forgot her vitamins. Chromosomal abnormalities that prohibit viability are the leading cause of miscarriage. Yet 9 in 10 respondents in the university study wrongly believed a fall, drug abuse, or medical condition were the culprits. They incorrectly identified stress as a greater correlation than advanced maternal age or smoking. Early pregnancy in America remains don't ask, don't tell. Telling too soon may open a woman to employment discrimination. In some cultures, she may face unwanted attention. Crucially, she may experience the anguish of having announced a pregnancy and then, after a miscarriage, publicly taking it back. In that silent 3-month space, when my miscarriage occurred, stigma stung and loneliness lurked. Problematic language reveals structures of power and betrays would-be mothers. We're pregnant, a Western couple may announce, but should that pregnancy end in miscarriage, she lost the baby. Reactions when miscarriage news is made public vary from empathy and self-disclosure to dismissal. Observers may offer feedback such as, at least you can get pregnant. One would not tell someone whose spouse has died that they can have another. Yet you can try again is not an unusual response to miscarriage. I grieved wholly and deeply for a baby who could not have survived outside of me, and indeed did not survive within me. This knowledge brushed awkwardly against the reality that legally, that pregnancy could have been terminated via abortion. Baby at 9 weeks had moved from the embryo to the fetus stage, was the size of a green olive, had fingers and toes and eyelids, and at one time, the lub-lub of a Doppler radar-detected heartbeat. This is not a treatise debating the morality or legality of abortion. It is an observation. I, a feminist, did not know where to turn with my feelings of loss. Pregnancy loss is a societal non-event. Americans' women's bodies are contested terrain. The 2022 US Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade has returned regulation of abortion to the state level. Who do babies belong to? And by extension, the women who carry them. American society has an intense interest in nascent people, but falters in the care of the born. We are fonder of potential life than we are of those who live. We have a sense of collective bodily ownership of pregnant women. It has spawned a cottage industry of hands-off t-shirts. But no one wants to own a miscarriage. That unhappy outcome belongs to a woman alone. Miscarriage can happen all by itself or with medical assistance. After days of waiting, we returned to the obstetrics office. There was another ultrasound, reconfirming the absence of fetal cardiac activity. The doctor hugged us and cried with us. From there, we drove to the hospital for surgery. My body was merrily carrying on, as if the baby factory was still online. And yet it wasn't. After realizing my biggest fear, a lost baby, a new fright had taken hold. This procedure allowed us to rule out cancer as an explanation for my miscarriage. Chromosomal abnormality, that usual suspect, was the likeliest reason. As the doctor explained, it was just a bad match. A woman's mental health is affected negatively by miscarriage, including post-traumatic stress symptoms of denial, isolation, involuntary remembrance, depression, and anxiety. Her reactions are enmeshed in her culture. Larger social forces play a role in the way 10 to 20% of miscarriages are perceived. Depression follows up to 20% of the time. I was not diagnosed with depression, yet I could have been. My deep grief, diminished joy, avoidance and spiraling thoughts, and loss of appetite likely qualified me. When a woman does not feel free to discuss her miscarriage, she can feel socially ostracized. Grief congruence, the idea that the pregnancy loss went as well as it could have if it could not have been avoided, is more positive for women who are able to talk in the aftermath, affirming the value and need of women to openly acknowledge and grieve. What does one do with the knowledge that one was privately pregnant? Increasingly, Women turn to social media to find sisters in sorrow and to news articles in which celebrities share relatable stories of pregnancy loss. Miscarriage news narratives and online disclosures by lay people and celebrities have created fertile ground for expressions of grief and the scholarly pursuit of the same. Grief work and collective emotion work can validate pregnancy loss and the feelings that accompany it. Sometimes disclosure in an online anonymous space can presage and precede sharing on social media networks. Because miscarriage has been a societal non-event, a woman can feel her social identity as a mother, patient, and citizen are spoiled. It takes hard work in the management of one's self-image to recover from such a disruption. The amplification of women's miscarriage experiences is surging in the area of public figures and celebrities. The celebrification of miscarriage increases awareness of this outcome, though such accounts can carry troublesome tropes and do not do much from an educational standpoint. For sure, they seem to give miscarrying women someone with whom they can identify. Articles tend to focus on healthy subsequent pregnancies, as most women who experience miscarriage are able to have later healthy pregnancies. This has the effect of reinforcing notions that a woman's sense of fulfilled self is reliant on her reproductive health. Celebrity miscarriage articles package and sell grief. They reinforce idealized body myths, and they reflect the 19th century notion of the cult of true womanhood. Celebrity articles do little to educate readers. When the famous share their loss, they risk criticism. Singer John Legend and supermodel Chrissy Teigen lost a son to miscarriage in September 2020. Fans expressed sorrow and commiseration, yet some conservatives greeted the news with chastisement for pro-choice Teigen, suggesting her grief invalidated her opinion. When pop singer Britney Spears and fiancé Sam Asghari disclosed a miscarriage via Instagram in 2022, Spears' post gathered 2 million likes. Still, it also reinforced the culture of early pregnancy secrecy, wrote the singer. Perhaps we should have waited to announce until we were further along. Future research could explore more notions related to miscarriage secrecy and the behavioral immune system, considerations of how miscarriage narratives and experiences unfold among particular groups, and deeper interrogation of social media grief work. Is there space for culturally accepted expressions of relief, or is grief the only socially acceptable emotion for women having miscarriages? Hashtags provide a rich pool of digital ethnographic data, including stillborn, still loved, and rainbow babies. In the aftermath, my husband and I got our wills in order. We laid grave blankets of fir boughs each winter before a tiny headstone inscribed with a single date. And 19 months after the miscarriage, we welcomed our own rainbow baby. We named him for the child of Adam and Eve, who came after the losses of Cain and Abel, an indication that love doesn't die. Even after pregnancy, the mother carries fetal cells from her child. In a phenomenon known as microchimerism, fetal cells flow through the placenta and join the mother's organs and blood. Some are deposited and remain a part of her for untold years into the future. This small solace resonates for me. Years have passed since the baby left my body, yet parts of the lost child, along with its siblings, may still remain.